A little under a year ago, J.J. Abrams laid the Skywalker saga to rest. Whether or not you liked his final installment, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, stands as the canon ending to the sequel trilogy, as he intended from The Force Awakens.
At the beginning, there was toying with like an Obi-Wan connection, and then it really went, there were like different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one. And then it came to Episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy, and I was like, awesome. And then 2 weeks later he was like, oh, we're not sure. So it kept changing. So then even I was filming and I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be.
So that was a lie. Just like Palpatine himself, the debate over Rey's parentage was exhumed and put right back into the filthy and ravenous hands of already divided Star Wars fans. My main issue with this is that it doesn't matter, but let's break it down. When we're first introduced to Rey on Jakku, we quickly learn 3 things about her. The first is that she's completely alone. She lives in a burnt-out AT-AT, scavenging for parts and barely surviving, trading them with Unkar Plutt just to get portions of portions. The second thing we learn about her is that she's desperate for family and for connection. She counts down the days she's been alone. Even when offered to stay with Han and Chewie, she wants to go back to Jakku to wait for a family that may or may not come. And the third thing we learn about her is that she's a very skilled fighter and has some connection to the Force. When she touches Anakin's lightsaber on Takodana, she has a vision, connecting her to the Skywalker story and the Knights of Ren, as well as connecting her abandonment to both of those things. So, we have our new Star Wars protagonist. She's alone, she wants a family, and she's got the Force. As Rey's whole setup deals with her mysterious past and her potential family, we're left with 2 distinct options for her going forward. Either she's Rey somebody, or she's Rey nobody. If she's Rey somebody, there's a whole bunch of options. She could really be related to anyone in the Star Wars universe. She could be a Skywalker. She could be a Kenobi, as was toyed with apparently by J.J. Abrams. She could be a Palpatine. She could be descended from Wedge Antilles given her flight ability. I mean, it's certainly possible. He was alive for the Exegol. She could even just be grown from Luke's severed hand from Bespin, especially given her connection to the lightsaber. We'll get into that another time. If that were the case, if she were Rey somebody, then her story should follow lineage. It should be about figuring out what it actually means to be a descendant, to have a blood family. Rey would have had the guidance of ancestors and have to deal with being just another link in the chain of generations. If she had been a Kenobi, perhaps Obi-Wan could have given her guidance as she was learning to use the Force, or even spoken to Luke and challenged his self-isolation on Ahch-To. If she were a Skywalker, she would have had to face up with what Anakin had done in his past versus what his actual goal was. She then would have been a true foil to Kylo Ren. As Kylo seeks to follow in the path of Darth Vader, Rey could have followed in the steps of Anakin Skywalker. Especially based on how she eventually learns how to Force heal, it would tie his story together incredibly well. On the other hand, we could have had Rey nobody. Her parents could have been filthy drunk traders. They could have had absolutely no bearing on her aside from being the cause of her abandonment and why she learned how to fight on Jakku. Her parents could have been absolutely no one. It was said best in Ratatouille. Anyone can cook. Anyone can be Force sensitive. Anyone can become a powerful Jedi. It's not just the Skywalker family, it's not just the Kenobis, it's not just people who were born of the Force and have a high midichlorian count. Rey and Broom Boy and Omi and everyone has the Force in them. Anyone can end up being powerful with the Force. Then her arc would have been about a found family with Finn and Poe and Leia and the Resistance and finding her place there. Not about blood relations, but about emotional relationships. She could have found the value in interpersonal bonds and started a new gray Jedi school to ensure that nothing like what happened to Anakin ever happens again. Then again, Granddaddy Palps could easily have worked. She would have had to square up with a familial legacy of destruction. She could have followed in his footsteps and after Snoke's death formed a master-apprentice relationship with Kylo Ren. They could have switched sides where she becomes the Sith and he turns back to the light and bonds with his mother again. Or Rey could have let go of this familial attachment she has wanted her whole life, taken the Palpatine name and thrown it away and gone to her found family in the Resistance. She could have chosen a family, choosing to reject the dark and stay in the light, rejecting ancestry and choosing the light while Anakin bonds with ancestry and falls to the dark side. It would have been art. So before we eviscerate what actually happened and what Daisy Ridley has now told us, let's walk Rey's parentage to the point of no return. I'm going to keep our options up on the board here. Palpatine, Kenobi, Skywalker, and nobody. I haven't included Wedge Antilles because, guys, I was kidding. I wasn't kidding about the hand. In The Force Awakens, all we are given is the mystery of Rey's parentage. It ties her only to Jakku and the Force, meaning all options are still on the table. In The Last Jedi, Rey starts to grapple with the dark and the light side, again keeping all options still on the table. But as she descends into the cave to find out who her parents are and she's faced with her own reflection ad nauseum, she is only shown herself. This makes it difficult for me to believe that she would be a Skywalker because at this point she has formed a relationship with Leia and now she knows Luke a little bit and obviously she's still missing Han. So one would think if she were a Skywalker they would have revealed themselves. However, maybe Luke being on the island is still blocking that connection, so we leave it up just for now. Then as we move through The Last Jedi, Kenobi is quickly erased from the picture. Luke explains more of what happened, Kylo fills in the rest, and we hit a point where if Obi-Wan were related somehow and he wasn't stepping up and involving himself in what Luke had going on, what the hell, dude? Kenobi's out. As Rey and Kylo start to get more intimate, we rule out Skywalker. Star Wars has a precedent of having people be related and not telling us and having them be romantic, but I don't think they're gonna do that again to us. No. Side note, this also takes Solo out of the picture, but that's separate. I feel like if Han were her dad, he would have said something earlier because they did form that good bond. So then Rey heads to Kylo Ren and Snoke, and we are left with two options at this point. Either she is nobody and her parents have no bearing on what happens here, or she is somebody. She is related to Palpatine or another Darksider that has a reason to not show themselves at this point and to want her to turn to the dark side. The confrontation in the throne room happens, and we are left with the realization that either Rey will take Kylo's hand or Kylo will come back to the light. Either Rey will join a family or Kylo will renounce one. It all comes down to accepting a familial lineage or renouncing a familial lineage. And then we have our moment where Kylo Ren says, "Your parents were nobody. They were filthy junk traders who sold you for drinking money." And Palpatine comes off the board. Now, we've all seen episode 9. We all know what happens. But before we give J.J. Abrams the chance to tell Rian Johnson to get blasted, I want to talk about why Kylo Ren would have lied to Rey. I don't care. You can give me whatever reason. Either he didn't know, he was still being manipulated, he was being manipulated by Palpatine. It doesn't matter. Because even though it's meta, he was being honest in that moment. Kylo Ren knew her parents were nobodies. So it doesn't matter why he said that, because it's bad writing. So we've made it to Rise of Skywalker, and J.J. Abrams says, oh, would you look at this? We only have one option left on the board. That's not how chess works. I'm just gonna slap this back on because I'm playing checkers and I just got to the other end of your board and now it's stacked up and I can do whatever I want. I don't know how to play checkers. So she's a Palpatine. Okay, fine. What does this actually mean? Doesn't matter to Rey. She doesn't know who Palpatine is. She knows nothing of what he's done. By the time she finds out that she's a Palpatine, she's not around anyone else who knows what he's done. No one else can be impacted by this. It's ever properly explained how he came back or what happened at the end of episode 6 that would make him still around. It's never explained who did the dirty with Palpatine to even have kids, to have a grandkid. And I know there was something about how he didn't get it on or whatever and it was the Force, but like, stop it with the Immaculate Conception. So by the time we find out that Rey finds out that she's a Palpatine, it has no bearing on the story whatsoever. She doesn't have to grapple with it. She doesn't have to deal with his legacy. All she has is a name and the vague knowledge that she's related to some sort of Darksider. Rey's parentage, which has been the focus of the entire series, now means absolutely nothing. When they only decided this partway through episode 9, when Adam Driver had to sit in his closet and record the line saying that she's a Palpatine, you know that it doesn't matter in the story. It had no bearing. Whether or not Rey knew, that's besides the point, but the writers went through the entire trilogy knowing that the main focus hadn't yet been decided. It doesn't matter. This name could say anything. This name could be anything. She could be shock and awe related to anyone, because Star Wars fans just like people to be related to people we already know or from planets that we've already heard of. It doesn't matter that it's Palpatine. It could be Maul. It could be Sidious. It could be Padme's secret love child with one of the handmaidens. It doesn't matter. And that is why I'm upset. I would have been really happy to have a Rey Kenobi. I would have been absolutely stoked to have a Rey nobody. But if you were gonna do this, it could have been good. It could have mattered. It could have had weight through the series, but instead you decided to eviscerate a series that you helped build just to have some cheap moment of, ooh, Force lightning and she's related to a dead dude. I'm gonna interrupt myself quickly before I get comments about it. I know that the original trilogy wasn't fully planned out before it was made. I know that Vader being Luke and Leia's dad was a surprise. I know that. But they were able to integrate it in a meaningful way into the story. They didn't wait until the end of episode 6 just to be like, lol, psych, he was your dad this whole time, and Luke and Leia didn't have to deal with the weight of that or the family legacy of should I join my father, should I fight my father, all of that. They were able to put it in and have it actually matter. Rey's whole character concept was trying to find a family because she was alone and seeking to find that family through the only connection she has, which is the Force. Either this has to matter or it doesn't matter at all and she is a nobody and can have found family. But maybe I'm biased. Maybe I want my media to make sense because I like analyzing it. I like taking it apart into little pieces and laying it out on a dissection table and putting it back together again. But J.J. Abrams, you didn't trust yourself in 2015 to write a good story. You had to go back and not only undermine Rian Johnson, but undermine your own work just to shock and awe fans because they were being piss babies about episode 8. It doesn't matter.